Look, I need to get this off my chest because what happened last weekend is still burning in my brain, and honestly, I'm pretty sure my family is about to realize they screwed up big time. This is going to be long, but trust me, you need the full picture to understand why I'm sitting here grinning while my phone blows up with increasingly panicked voicemails. Some background. My family cut me off last year after I refused to loan my brother Drake money for his third failed business venture. Yeah, you read that right. I said no to throwing good money after bad, and suddenly I was the family outcast. My dad Henry made it clear I wasn't welcome at family events anymore because I was selfish and forgot where I came from. My sister Amy backed him up, posting passive-aggressive stuff on Facebook about family loyalty and people who abandon their roots. Mom Elizabeth went along with it like she always does, and my uncle Silvio just laughed when I tried to explain my position during one final phone call. Drake acted like I'd personally destroyed his dreams and blocked me on everything. Here's what they didn't know. I'd been working my tail off for the past 5 years building up my consulting business. While they were all focused on their drama and who owed who what, I was landing bigger clients, networking with industry professionals, and yeah, actually becoming pretty successful. Not rich or anything crazy, but comfortable enough that I didn't need to borrow money from anyone or stress about bills. I went from barely scraping by after college to having a solid emergency fund, good credit, and consistent monthly income that kept growing. The irony wasn't lost on me. They cut me off for being selfish with money, right? When my financial situation was better than it had ever been. But I kept quiet about my success. Didn't post about new clients on social media, didn't brag about business trips or the fact that I'd finally moved into a decent apartment in a good neighborhood. Something told me to keep that information to myself, and man, am I glad I did. So last Monday, completely out of nowhere, Drake texts me. Haven't heard from any of them in over a year, and suddenly it's Dad's retirement BBQ this Saturday. Whole family wants you there. You grilling like old times will make it perfect. No apology for cutting me off. No acknowledgement of what happened. No explanation for the year of silence. Just assuming I'd drop everything and show up to play my old role. I stared at that text for probably 10 minutes. The audacity was incredible. After everything they'd said, after making it clear I wasn't family anymore, they wanted me back for one specific thing, to cook their food. Because that's what I always did at family gatherings. While Dad held court with his beer and war stories, while Uncle Silvio cracked inappropriate jokes, while Amy took selfies and Drake worked whatever room he was in for potential business contacts, I was the one actually handling the grill, making sure everyone's burger was cooked right, that the hot dogs didn't burn, that there were enough vegetarian options for the few cousins who didn't eat meat. I should have known something was up. Growing up, I was always the reliable one, the one who showed up early to help set up, stayed late to clean up, and never complained when family events turned into everyone else having fun while I worked. It was my thing, and honestly, I was good at it. I took pride in it. But that text felt different, like they needed something from me but weren't willing to admit it, let alone apologize for how they'd treated me. The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. Why reach out now? Why specifically mention grilling? Why act like the past year hadn't happened? I spent the whole week going back and forth. Part of me wanted to ignore the text completely. Part of me was curious about what they really wanted. And yeah, part of me missed them, even after everything. But you know what? I was also angry, still angry. A year of being treated like I didn't exist, and now they wanted me back to perform my old function like nothing had changed. So I decided to go. But not for the reasons they expected. Saturday comes, and I show up with a six-pack of the good beer and my old grilling tools in their worn leather case. The same tools I'd used at dozens of family events over the years. The moment I walk through the backyard gate, I can tell something's off. There are way more people than usual, cousins I hadn't seen in years, some neighbors, even a few people I didn't recognize. The setup is bigger too, like they're throwing a real party, not just a family barbecue. Dad's holding court by the patio table, already 3 beers deep, from the look of it. The moment he sees me, he literally spits out his beer laughing. He shouts loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Jesus Christ, he actually showed up. Our family errand boy never learns. And that's when I realized what this was really about. This wasn't a family reunion. This was entertainment. Uncle Silvio jumps right in, his voice hoarse like he'd been yelling all day. Flip those burgers, kid. The only thing you're qualified to turn over is meat. The crowd around him laughs like he's just delivered the punchline of the century. Amy's got her phone out immediately, recording everything for TikTok, narrating like I can't hear her standing 10 feet away. TikTok is gonna love this. Broke 30-something still taking orders like a hired hand. My cousins, who I used to be close with before all this family drama started, join in with chanting, Burger Boy, like we're at some twisted summer camp. But Mom was the worst. She gets louder than all of them combined, really projecting her voice so everyone in the backyard can hear. You can't hold a job, can't keep a woman, but at least you can squirt ketchup without screwing it up. Can't hold a job. Lady, I've been running my own business for 5 years and haven't missed a rent payment in 3. Can't keep a woman? I've been single by choice because I've been focused on building something substantial instead of whatever drama-filled relationships my siblings keep cycling through. But standing there with 30-plus people staring at me, waiting for me to either blow up or slink away to the grill like the old days, I realized something important. They had no idea who I'd become. To them, I was still the same guy from a year ago, the one struggling to make ends meet, the one who needed family approval, the one who would swallow his pride and do whatever they wanted just to belong. Drake's smirking at me from across the patio, beer in hand like he's watching his favorite TV show. Easiest $100 I ever made. Told everyone you'd crawl back to play our butler. So this was a bet. They literally wagered money on whether I'd show up and let them humiliate me. The whole thing was planned, orchestrated, designed to put me in my place one more time. Dad raises his glass like he's making some grand toast, really milking the moment. A toast to our family clown. Always cooking, never eating, perfectly useless. The whole backyard explodes in laughter. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors. Everyone just losing it like this is the funniest thing they've ever seen. People are actually wiping tears from their eyes. And you know what I did? I smiled, walked over to the grill like they expected, picked up the spatula, flipped the last burger that was already cooking, wiped my hands on the towel hanging from the side of the grill. Happy retirement, Dad. Hope you enjoy every bite. And don't forget, actions have consequences. Then I walked out, didn't slam the gate, didn't yell back, didn't give them the explosion they were hoping for. Just left them there with their half-cooked food, their jokes, and their bets. Now here's where it gets interesting and why I'm posting this instead of just moving on with my life. See, what my family doesn't know is that my consulting business has grown pretty substantial over the past year. I specialize in helping small businesses with their operational efficiency, financial planning, and regulatory compliance. I've built a network of contacts in banking, insurance, local government, and industry associations. Guess whose businesses I've been quietly monitoring through public records, industry connections, and good old-fashioned professional networking? Drake's current venture, the one he wanted me to fund last year, is already behind on 3 different vendor payments and has 2 outstanding liens from contractors he never paid. Dad's retirement portfolio took a major hit last year when he made some questionable investment choices based on advice from his golf buddies instead of actual financial professionals. Amy's social media business runs on credit cards she can barely afford, and her follower engagement numbers are dropping fast. Uncle Silvio's contracting company has been struggling to get permits approved for his jobs because he keeps cutting corners on the paperwork. And here's the thing, they're all going to need help soon. Real help, professional help, the kind of help that someone with my connections, expertise, and industry reputation could provide, or could choose not to provide. 24 hours after that BBQ, my phone started ringing. Drake first, then Dad, then Amy. Missed calls that I watched come in but didn't answer. Voicemails that started angry and got increasingly desperate as the hours passed. The family group chat that I got mysteriously added back to without my permission is blowing up with messages like, "What did you do?" and "Why is this happening?" and "Pick up your damn phone." I haven't answered yet, still deciding whether I want to. Because here's what they're just starting to figure out. I'm not the same person who left their house a year ago. I'm not the family errand boy anymore. I'm not the one who needs them. They are the ones who need me. And actions? They definitely have consequences. Update 1. Thank you for all the support and the awards. Some of you were asking for updates, and boy do I have updates. If you thought the BBQ was bad, wait until you hear what happened when I finally started answering their calls. So Tuesday morning, I'm having my coffee and going through emails when my phone starts buzzing again. Drake's name pops up for probably the 15th time since Sunday. I almost let it go to voicemail like all the others, but something made me pick up. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was because I'd spent 2 years planning for this exact moment and I was ready to hear what he had to say. Drake starts talking before I can even say hello. His voice is strained, like he hasn't slept much. He asks me what I did to his business, demands to know if I sabotage something, threatens to call the police if I don't explain myself. I let him vent for a solid 2 minutes before I interrupt him. I tell him I have no idea what he's talking about. Ask him what specific problem he's having. That seems to throw him off because he goes quiet for a second, then starts explaining that 3 of his major clients canceled their contracts on Monday morning. all within an hour of each other. Says it makes no sense because these were solid deals. Money already committed. Projects ready to start. Now here's what Drake doesn't know, and what I've been waiting 2 years to use against him. When he cut me off last year, he made a big show of telling everyone how I was jealous of his success and couldn't stand seeing him do well. But I'd actually been helping him behind the scenes for months before our falling out, reviewing his contracts, introducing him to potential clients through my network, even giving him advice on pricing and project management. All stuff he never acknowledged or thanked me for. Those 3 clients he just lost, I'm the one who connected him to them in the first place. Through my consulting work, I know people in their industries. And I'd recommended Drake because, hey, family loyalty, right? But I also know these clients personally, know their business priorities, their budget cycles, their decision-making processes. So when Drake tells me about the cancellations, I ask him if he checked whether those companies had budget reallocations or strategic shifts. Suggest maybe he should look into whether there were compliance issues with his proposals. Make it sound like helpful advice while knowing exactly what happened. See, what I did wasn't sabotage. I didn't lie about Drake or spread rumors or interfere with his business directly. I just had some very honest conversations with the news clients about market conditions and vendor selection criteria. Professional discussions between business colleagues. Mentioned that it might be worth reviewing their current contracts to make sure they align with their updated strategic goals. Drake gets more agitated as I'm talking. Keeps insisting this isn't a coincidence, that it's connected to whatever I meant by consequences at the BBQ. I tell him I was just upset about the humiliation and making a dramatic exit. Ask him why he's so paranoid about normal business fluctuations. But then he says something that makes everything click into place. He tells me that Dad is freaking out because his financial advisor dropped him as a client on Monday too. Says Amy's biggest sponsor pulled out of her social media partnership. Says Uncle Silvio got a call that his permit applications are being flagged for additional review. That's when I realized they think I orchestrated all of this. That somehow I have the power to coordinate attacks on their livelihoods. The idea is so absurd that I actually laugh, which makes Drake even angrier. He starts yelling about how I always thought I was better than everyone, how I've been planning this revenge for over a year, how I can't stand that they're successful without me. The bitterness in his voice is incredible. He rants about how I never supported the family, how I was always selfish with my money and my connections, how I act like I'm too good for everyone. And there it is. The real reason they treat me the way they do. It's not just about the money I wouldn't loan him. It's resentment that I built something on my own without needing them. Drake expected me to always be the supporting character in his story. The reliable little brother who would provide resources and connections and then fade into the background while he took credit for the success. When I started doing well independently, when I didn't need their approval or validation anymore, it threatened the family dynamic they were comfortable with. They needed me to be the screw-up, the one they could feel superior to. My success made them insecure about their own accomplishments. I let Drake finish his rant, then calmly explain that I don't have the kind of influence he's imagining. Tell him that business relationships are complicated, and maybe he should focus on improving his client retention instead of blaming external factors. Suggest that if multiple people are distancing themselves from the family, maybe there's a pattern worth examining. Drake hangs up on me, but the calls don't stop. Wednesday evening, Dad calls while I'm at the gym. I almost don't answer because I'm in the middle of a workout, but I figure I might as well get this over with. Dad's approach is completely different from Drake's. He starts by apologizing for the BBQ, says things got out of hand and maybe they were too harsh, claims he was just trying to have some fun for his retirement party and didn't mean to really hurt my feelings. The fake sincerity in his voice is nauseating. Then he transitions into asking for help, says his financial advisor dropped him without explanation and he needs someone trustworthy to review his portfolio. Mentions that I always had a good head for numbers and maybe we could work together on this. Offers to pay me for consulting services like I'm some stranger he's hiring instead of his son. I ask him why he thinks I'd want to help after what happened at the BBQ. Dad gets defensive, claims it was just family teasing, and I'm being too sensitive. Says families are supposed to stick together through thick and thin. And holding grudges isn't healthy. The hypocrisy is staggering. When I wouldn't loan Drake money, suddenly family loyalty didn't matter. When they cut me off for a year, family unity wasn't important. But now that they need something from me, suddenly we're supposed to forget everything and rally around each other. I tell Dad that I'm busy with my own clients and can't take on additional consulting work right now. Suggest he find another advisor who specializes in retirement planning. He keeps pushing, trying different angles, getting increasingly frustrated when I don't bite. Finally, he drops the act and his real personality comes out. Accuses me of being vindictive and petty. Says I'm punishing the whole family because my feelings got hurt. Claims that everything they said at the BBQ was just jokes, and I'm taking it too seriously. When I point out that making jokes at someone's expense in front of 30 people isn't actually funny for the person being mocked, Dad gets angry. Says I always had a problem with authority, that I never knew my place in the family hierarchy, that I need to learn respect and stop acting like I'm better than everyone else. There's that theme again. My place, their hierarchy. The assumption that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of acceptance they throw my way. I tell Dad that respect works both ways and hang up. Thursday brings a call from Amy. She's crying before she even starts talking. Says she doesn't understand what's happening, that her whole life is falling apart and she needs her brother right now. The manipulation is so obvious it's almost insulting, but I let her talk. Amy explains that her biggest sponsor canceled their partnership without warning. Says she's scrambling to find replacement income because she has expenses and commitments based on that sponsorship money. Claims she's always supported me and doesn't understand why I'm doing this to her. I remind Amy about the TikTok video she made at the BBQ. Ask her how calling me a broke 30-something taking orders like a hired hand was supportive. She gets defensive, claims it was just content creation and not meant to be personal. Amy tries to explain that social media is different, that she was just playing to her audience and creating entertaining content. Says I should understand that it wasn't really about me, just about getting engagement and views. The fact that she can't see how dehumanizing that is tells me everything about her priorities. We go back and forth for 20 minutes. Amy keeps trying to find an angle that will make me feel sorry for her or guilty about her situation. She brings up childhood memories, talks about how we used to be close, asks why I'm being so cold and calculating. But every time she tries to pivot to asking for help, I steer the conversation back to the BBQ. Make her explain exactly what she meant by each comment. Force her to acknowledge that she knew those words would hurt but said them anyway for her video. Amy finally breaks down completely. Admits that the whole family planned the humiliation in advance. Says Drake organized it and convinced everyone to participate. Claims she only went along with it because she didn't want to be left out, and they assured her it was just harmless fun. That confirmation hits different than I expected. Even though I suspected it was coordinated, hearing her admit that they literally planned my humiliation is enraging. They invited me specifically to mock me for their entertainment, made it a group project. Amy begs me to help her find new sponsors, offers to split partnership income with me, promises to make it up to me somehow. When I decline, she gets angry just like the others. Accuses me of holding grudges and being unforgiving. Says family is supposed to forgive each other unconditionally. I ask Amy if she forgave me unconditionally when they cut me off for a year. Silence. The pattern is becoming clear. Each family member calls with the same basic script. Apologize half-heartedly, minimize what they did, ask for help, then get angry when I don't immediately forgive and assist them. They genuinely believe that because we're related, I owe them unlimited second chances regardless of how they treat me. But here's what none of them understand yet. This isn't about the specific help they're asking for. This is about years of being treated like a resource instead of a person. Years of being expected to provide support without receiving respect. Years of having my boundaries ignored and my feelings dismissed. Uncle Silvio calls Friday afternoon. His approach is the most direct. No apologies, no manipulation, just straight demands. Says his permit delays are costing him money every day, and he needs me to call in favors with my government contacts to expedite the approvals. When I ask why he thinks I'd want to help him, Silvio laughs. Says family doesn't keep score, that we all help each other when needed. Reminds me that he taught me how to use power tools when I was younger and never asked for anything in return. I point out that teaching your nephew basic skills isn't the same as providing professional services. Silvio gets frustrated, claims I'm being difficult and overthinking simple family dynamics. Says the old me would have made a few phone calls without all this drama. That's the thing, though. I'm not the old me. The old me would have swallowed his pride and helped them despite their treatment. Would have convinced himself that maintaining family relationships was worth the constant disrespect. Would have kept accepting crumbs of conditional love while providing unconditional support. The new me recognizes manipulation tactics, understands that healthy relationships require mutual respect, knows the difference between family loyalty and family exploitation. All these conversations have confirmed what I suspected during that BBQ. They don't see me as an equal family member. I'm a tool to be used when convenient and discarded when not needed. The humiliation ritual was their way of reminding me of my assigned role in their hierarchy. But what they still don't understand is that I'm not playing by their rules anymore. And I've been preparing for this exact scenario for longer than they realize. The weekend is coming and Mom hasn't called yet. Something tells me she's going to be the final boss of this whole situation. And honestly, I can't wait. Update 2. You guys, I can't believe what happened this weekend. Thank you all for the support on my last update. Seriously, reading your comments has been keeping me sane through all this family drama. Some of you predicted that mom would be the most manipulative, and holy crap, you were right. So Friday night, I'm making dinner when my phone rings. Elizabeth. I almost didn't answer because honestly, I was mentally exhausted from all the other conversations, but something told me this was going to be the big one. Mom starts crying immediately. Not the fake tears Amy tried. Real, ugly crying that goes on for like 3 minutes before she can even form words. When she finally starts talking, it's this rambling apology about how sorry she is for the BBQ, how she never should have said those horrible things, how she's been losing sleep over it all week. But then she tells me something that changes everything. She admits that the whole humiliation thing was Drake's idea, but it went way further than anyone planned. Says Drake convinced everyone it would just be light teasing to welcome me back to the family. But once it started, everyone got carried away trying to one-up each other with the jokes. Mom explains that Drake had been telling the family for months that I was struggling financially and would probably come crawling back eventually. He painted this picture of me as desperate and barely making ends meet. So when he suggested the BBQ setup, everyone thought they were just having fun with someone who needed to be taken down a peg. The thing is, Drake actually believed his own lies. When I wouldn't loan him money last year, he convinced himself it was because I didn't have any to spare, not because I was setting boundaries. He's been telling everyone that my refusal to help was proof that I was just as broke as he assumed. So when I showed up to the BBQ calm and well-dressed, it confused everyone. They were expecting someone desperate and defeated, not someone who looked like they had their life together. That's why the jokes got so vicious. They were trying to bring me down to the level they thought I was already at. Mom keeps apologizing and crying, but then she drops the real bomb. She tells me that Drake's business is actually in serious trouble. Not just the client cancellations I already knew about, but deeper problems that have been building for months. Turns out he's been using family connections and my old recommendations to secure contracts he couldn't actually fulfill properly. Remember those clients who canceled? They didn't just drop him because I had conversations with them. They dropped him because Drake had been promising services his company couldn't deliver, using my reputation and connections as collateral he didn't actually have. When they started asking detailed questions about project timelines and deliverables, Drake couldn't provide satisfactory answers. Mom explains all this while begging me to help him. Says he's behind on rent for his office space, owes money to subcontractors, and might have to shut down completely if he can't turn things around. She keeps emphasizing that he's family, and families help each other through hard times. I ask Mom why Drake never mentioned any of this when he called me earlier in the week. Why he spent 20 minutes accusing me of sabotage instead of just asking for help directly. She gets quiet, then admits that Drake made her promise not to tell me how bad things really were, because he was embarrassed and didn't want to look weak. That's when everything clicks. Drake's anger wasn't really about the canceled contracts. It was about his whole business model falling apart and him realizing that he'd been depending on connections and recommendations that were never actually his to begin with. When those supports disappeared, everything collapsed. We talk for almost an hour. Mom cycles through every manipulation technique in the book. Guilt trips about family loyalty, reminders of childhood bonds, promises that things will be different if I just help this one time. But she also reveals more details about everyone else's situations. Dad's financial advisor didn't just drop him randomly. The advisor had been recommending increasingly risky investments based on Dad's claims about having a financially successful son who could help cover losses if needed. When Dad couldn't provide documentation of my income or willingness to co-sign anything, the advisor realized Dad had been misrepresenting his family financial situation and decided the relationship was too risky to continue. Amy's sponsor situation is similar. She'd been pitching herself as part of a successful business family, using my consulting work as part of her brand story without permission. When the sponsor did basic background research and couldn't find evidence of the family business connections Amy had claimed, they pulled out of the partnership. Uncle Silvio's permit problems aren't random bureaucratic delays. Turns out he's been listing me as a business reference on applications, claiming I was a partner or consultant on his projects. When the permitting office tried to verify these claims and couldn't reach me, they flagged his applications for additional review. Every single problem they're facing traces back to them using my name, reputation, or connections without permission. They built their business strategies around resources that belong to me, not them. When I stopped being available, their house of cards collapsed. Mom doesn't see it this way, of course. She frames everything as a series of unfortunate coincidences and asks why I won't help family during a crisis. When I point out that they created this crisis by misrepresenting their relationship with me to third parties, she gets defensive. She insists that families share resources and support each other's success, says that by keeping my business growth to myself, I was being selfish and secretive, claims that if I had been more open about my consulting work, they could have collaborated instead of making assumptions. I ask Mom if she remembers why I became secretive about my business in the first place, whether she recalls the year of being cut off and treated like I didn't exist. She goes quiet again. The conversation gets heated when I explain that I never gave anyone permission to use my name or connections for their business ventures. Mom argues that family doesn't need permission to support each other, that I'm being unreasonably territorial about professional relationships that should benefit everyone. This is the core of our disagreement. Mom sees my business connections as family assets that I'm hoarding. I see them as professional relationships that I built through my own work and reputation. She thinks family loyalty means unlimited access to each other's resources. I think it means respecting boundaries and not taking advantage of each other. Mom tries one last manipulation. She tells me that Drake is talking about moving back in with them because he might lose his apartment. Says Amy is considering giving up on social media entirely and finding a regular job. Claims Dad is too stressed about money to enjoy his retirement. Paints this picture of family disaster that's somehow all my fault for not being more generous. When I don't immediately offer to fix everyone's problems, Mom's tone changes completely. She accuses me of being vindictive and holding grudges. Says I'm punishing everyone for one bad evening and destroying the family over hurt feelings. Claims that the person she raised would never be this cold and calculating. That hits different than I expected. Not because it makes me feel guilty, but because it confirms that Mom never really knew who I was becoming. She's still thinking of me as the person who would absorb any amount of disrespect just to maintain family harmony. I tell Mom that I love her, but I'm not responsible for fixing problems that other people created by misusing my name and reputation. Explain that healthy families don't build their success on unauthorized use of each other's professional credentials. Mom hangs up on me. Saturday morning brings a group text from Drake. He's added Dad, Amy, Uncle Silvio, and Mom to a family chat and sends this long message about how I'm destroying the family by refusing to help during a crisis. Says I'm being petty and vindictive over one evening of harmless jokes. The responses are immediate and brutal. Everyone piles on about family loyalty and forgiveness. Amy sends crying emoji and messages about how stressed she is. Dad writes paragraphs about respect and family hierarchy. Uncle Silvio just sends angry face emojis. But here's the thing. They're all still trying to pressure me into fixing their problems instead of addressing the root cause. Nobody acknowledges that they used my name and connections without permission. Nobody apologizes for building business strategies around resources they didn't actually have access to. I send one message back. Using someone's professional reputation without permission isn't family support, it's fraud. Figure out your own solutions. Then I mute the group chat. Sunday evening, I get individual texts from 3 different family members asking me to call them. Each one claims they want to have a private conversation away from all the group drama. But I know what those conversations would be. More manipulation, more guilt trips, more demands that I fix problems I didn't create. The funny thing is, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of being treated like a resource instead of a person. Tired of having my boundaries ignored and my feelings dismissed. Tired of being expected to provide unlimited support while receiving conditional love in return. They want to know why I won't help family during a crisis. The real question is, why they think misrepresenting their relationship with me to third parties counts as family business in the first place. Next update is going to be the final one, because I think it's time to make some permanent decisions about what kind of relationship I want with these people going forward. And honestly, I already know what those decisions are going to be. Final update. Alright guys, this is going to be my last update on this whole family drama situation. Thank you all for following along and for all the support in the comments. Some of you have been asking what my final decision was going to be, and honestly, after this week, the choice became pretty clear. So Tuesday morning, I wake up to 17 missed calls and about 30 text messages from various family members. Apparently Drake had some kind of meltdown on Monday night and called everyone demanding they pressure me into helping him. The group chat I muted had turned into this absolute disaster of finger-pointing and blame-shifting. I decide to unmute it just to see what's happening, and it's exactly what you'd expect. Drake is sending these long, rambling messages about how I'm destroying the family out of spite. Amy keeps posting crying selfies and asking why everyone is being so mean to each other. Dad is sending these authoritative messages about family hierarchy and respect. Uncle Silvio is just cursing everyone out, and Mom is trying to play peacemaker while simultaneously guilt-tripping me. But here's the thing that really sealed the deal for me. In the middle of all this chaos, Drake sends a screenshot of a conversation he had with one of our cousins who lives across the country. Apparently, he's been reaching out to extended family members, telling them I'm having some kind of mental breakdown and trying to sabotage everyone's businesses out of jealousy. The screenshot shows him asking our cousin Kylie if she can talk sense into me or if she knows anyone who might hire him for contract work. He's literally trying to use the extended family network to both replace the connections he lost and build a narrative that I'm the unstable one. That's when I realized this isn't going to end. Even if I help them this time, they just continue using my name and connections without permission. They'd keep treating me like a resource instead of a person. The humiliation at the BBQ wasn't a one-time thing. It was just the most obvious example of how they've always seen me. So I decide to have one final conversation with each of them, not to negotiate or compromise, but to make my position completely clear before I cut contact. I start with Drake since he's clearly the ringleader of this whole mess. When I call him Tuesday afternoon, he immediately starts in with this aggressive stance about how I need to stop playing games and help the family. Says he knows I'm behind all their problems and demands that I fix what I broke. I let him vent for about 5 minutes, then calmly explain that I didn't break anything. Remind him that I never gave permission for him to use my name as a business reference or to promise clients services based on my connections. Point out that building a business model around resources you don't actually control isn't my fault when it fails. Drake gets increasingly agitated as I talk, keeps insisting that families share everything, and that I was obligated to support his business ventures whether I wanted to or not. Claims that by keeping my success private, I was essentially stealing opportunities from the rest of the family. The conversation goes in circles for 20 minutes. Drake refuses to acknowledge that using someone's professional reputation without permission is inappropriate. He genuinely believes that my consulting contacts and business relationships should have been available to him automatically because we're related. When I explain that I'm going to cut contact with everyone until they can learn to respect basic boundaries, Drake loses it completely. Starts yelling about how I think I'm better than everyone, how I've always been selfish and ungrateful, how the family would be better off without me anyway. I hang up on him. The conversation with Dad goes similarly, but with more manipulation tactics. He tries the authority angle first, telling me that as the patriarch of the family, he's ordering me to help Drake and stop causing problems. When that doesn't work, he switches to guilt trips about disappointing my mother and destroying family traditions. Dad keeps circling back to this theme that I don't know my place in the family structure. Says that younger family members are supposed to support the older generation and help their siblings, not compete with them or withhold resources out of spite. I ask Dad if he thinks respect only flows upward in families or if older members have any obligation to treat younger ones decently. He actually tells me that respect is earned through contribution to the family and that by refusing to help when needed, I'm proving I don't deserve the same consideration as everyone else. That conversation ends with Dad threatening to cut me out of his will and telling me not to expect any inheritance if I continue being selfish. Like that's supposed to motivate me to help people who've been treating me like garbage. Amy's call is just pure emotional manipulation. She cries through the entire conversation and keeps asking why I'm being so mean to her when she's always loved me. Claims she doesn't understand what she did wrong and that I'm punishing her for other people's mistakes. When I bring up the TikTok video and her participation in the BBQ humiliation, Amy insists it was all just harmless fun and that I'm being too sensitive. Says that social media content isn't real life, and I shouldn't take it personally when she calls me a broke loser for her followers. Amy begs me to reconsider cutting contact with the family. Promises that things will be different if I just give everyone another chance. Says she'll make sure nobody ever makes jokes about me again, and that she'll talk to Drake about including me in business decisions. The fact that she thinks the problem is about being included in their schemes, rather than them using my name without permission, shows she completely misses the point. Uncle Silvio doesn't even try to apologize or negotiate. Just tells me I'm making a mistake that I'll regret later when I need family support. Says that burning bridges with family is something you can't take back, and that I'm going to end up alone and bitter if I keep holding grudges. He also mentions that he's been talking to some of his contractor friends about me, telling them I'm unreliable and difficult to work with. Apparently, his plan is to damage my professional reputation in retaliation for not helping with his permit problems. That actually makes me laugh. The idea that Uncle Silvio's contractor buddies have any influence in my consulting niche is ridiculous. But the fact that he's actively trying to hurt my business while demanding that I help his shows exactly what kind of person he is. Mom's call is the hardest one, but also the most important. She spends the first 10 minutes crying and begging me not to cut contact with the family. Says that losing me would destroy her and that she can't bear the thought of her children not speaking to each other. But when I ask Mom if she's willing to acknowledge that the family has been treating me unfairly, she can't do it. She keeps trying to find middle ground, suggesting that maybe everyone made mistakes and we should all just forgive each other and start fresh. I explain to Mom that this isn't about forgiveness. It's about establishing basic boundaries that prevent future harm. Tell her that until family members can acknowledge what they did wrong and commit to respecting my professional boundaries, reconciliation isn't possible. Mom gets frustrated when I won't accept her compromise solutions. Keeps saying that families aren't supposed to have formal boundaries, that we should be able to work through problems with love and understanding instead of ultimatums and conditions. When I point out that love and understanding have to go both ways, and that the family has shown no willingness to understand my perspective, Mom finally gets angry, accuses me of being cold and calculating, says the son she raised would never be this unforgiving toward family members who are struggling. That's when I tell Mom that the son she raised spent years accepting disrespect and mistreatment because he thought family loyalty meant unlimited tolerance. Explain that I'm not that person anymore and won't go back to being a doormat for people who don't value me as an individual. Mom hangs up on me too. By Wednesday afternoon, I've blocked all their numbers and removed myself from the family group chat. I also send a professional email to my business contacts explaining that I'm no longer affiliated with any family member's business ventures and that any previous recommendations or references should be considered withdrawn. It's been a week since then, and honestly, I feel lighter than I have in years. No more guilt trips, no more manipulation, no more walking on eggshells to avoid family drama, no more being treated like a resource instead of a person. I've heard through mutual friends that Drake had to close his business and move back in with our parents. Amy is working at a retail job while trying to rebuild her social media following. Dad is apparently still struggling to find a new financial advisor willing to work with his limited assets. Uncle Silvio is dealing with continued permit delays and regulatory scrutiny. The thing is, none of these problems required my active involvement to develop. They were all natural consequences of the choices these people made. Using my name without permission, building business strategies around resources they didn't control, misrepresenting their professional relationships to third parties. I didn't sabotage anyone or take revenge in the dramatic way they keep accusing me of. I just stopped being available to clean up messes that other people created. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in dysfunction. Some of you have asked if I miss them or feel guilty about their situations. Honestly, I miss the family I thought I had, but I don't miss the reality of how they actually treated me. And I feel sad about their struggles, but I don't feel responsible for fixing problems they brought on themselves. The cousin Kylie that Drake reached out to actually contacted me directly after hearing his version of events. When I explained what really happened, she wasn't surprised. Turns out Drake had been telling extended family members for years that I was jealous of his success and that I was holding the family back financially. Kylie told me that several cousins had been wondering why I seemed so distant at family gatherings, and now they understand it was because I was being treated like garbage by the immediate family. She also mentioned that she'd been getting weird requests from Drake and Amy for business connections over the past year, which makes sense now that I know they were trying to replace the network access they lost when I stopped helping them. It's funny how cutting out toxic people doesn't just improve your life directly, it also reveals how their toxicity was affecting your relationships with other people too. So that's the end of this saga. I'm building a life surrounded by people who respect me and treat me as an equal. My business is thriving, my stress levels are down, and I don't have to deal with constant family drama anymore. As for the family members who spent that BBQ calling me useless and treating me like their personal servant, they're discovering what happens when you burn bridges with the people who actually had their lives together. Actions have consequences. Just like I told Dad at that grill. Sometimes those consequences take a while to fully develop, but they always show up eventually. And sometimes the best revenge is just living well while toxic people deal with the messes they created for themselves.